Hello and welcome to today's LOL Esports Roundup. We're going to cover the games from the LCS last night, the LPL and LCK, the LPL and LCK games from this morning. Speak English. And then preview tomorrow's games in the LPL, LCK, and LEC. Reminder, I'm going out of town, so the roundups, I have figured out that, how to, record with just audio. So I'm going to try and get some videos up when I'm gone, when I'm out. I'm bringing the microphone with me. Otherwise, there is pre-recorded content I've already made for 7 of the 8 days. My power ranking video I do anticipate doing regardless of anything, so I will have content up on the channel, so make sure you subscribe. Predictions 212 and 93 on the season. Predictions will continue for members only via posts. LCS, FlyQuest, and TL. FlyQuest 11th in the power rankings, 11 and 2, would lose to TL. Who were 5 and 8. Pioshik was MVP on a Lee Sin. Harry went 7-1-8 in mid for 37% of TL's damage. Eon 2-0-13 at 80 carry. And Prince 1-5-2, 31% of damage for FlyQuest. The FlyQuest bot lane got gapped. Prince and Isla playing by far their worst game. Prince dying multiple times in the early game, putting himself behind on the Lucian. And TL just took advantage of it. FlyQuest had no answer. Even despite Impact, I think, in my opinion, having the advantage over Summit in top lane due to Spica going up there in the early game to get him ahead, that wasn't able to actually go anywhere because Pioshik found ways to get ahead. I mean, Pioshik went top lane, he went mid lane, he found a time to go bot lane. Pioshik probably played his best game of the split. TL probably played their best game of the split. I mean, beating FlyQuest, it's not overly shocking if you really think about it. TL had a whole week to prepare, and they're like, FlyQuest is the first game on the schedule. That's the one we have to win. Excuse me. They're saying that they struggled in scrims after doing so well in scrims throughout the rest of the year and being 4 and 8. A week where they're bad in scrims, all of a sudden they win. FlyQuest, it's been the opposite. FlyQuest has been bad in scrims and won games. I think Spica said that last week. So it's one of those things where scrims aren't always a good telltale sign of what actually transpires on the Rift and on stage. TL came out firing, and FlyQuest's strongest players were non-existent. You notice I didn't mention Vikla at all because Vikla was irrelevant. If anything, he was relevant in a bad way. Golden Guardians and 100 Thieves. Golden Guardians 8 and 5, 100 Thieves 5 and 8. Closer was MVP in the win for 100 Thieves. Tenacity 217 with a team leading 28% of damage on Gragas. Bjergsen 309 on Azir. Licorice 220, 32% of damage on a Renekton for Golden Guardians. Slow early game for sure. We saw a little bit of spice in the bot lane, but otherwise, honestly, Closer got the team ahead. Similar to Pioshik, Closer was a menace on the Lee Sin. That is his best champion, that and Viego, so to see him do well is not a shock on the champion. Now to gap River, that's something. Once again, another mid-jungle duo you expect more out of with River Gory, and it really didn't show up. Frankly, Golden Guardians are a little overhyped right now. They rode a hot streak. I think that they're going to start coming down to earth. Stixay played well at times, but other times, made some errors in team fights. I thought that Busio played a big role in this game. There was a key team fight at a Drake where he was able to engage and knock out the Zeri on a Rakan, which allowed 100 Thieves to win the team fight and then take that team fight and snowball into a win. And that was really the key moment because Closer got 100 Thieves ahead, but then when they dropped Rift Herald in bot lane, they completely flubbed the situation. Completely screwed it up. Golden Guardians go bot lane, get a few kills, are able to come back in the game, and it took that team fight win for 100 Thieves to gain control back and actually, succeed. And it's kind of funny because Tenacity was on an island against Licorice, and both were impactful. But I'm surprised, honestly, when I saw it, that Tenacity led the team in damage because it felt like he wasn't, as as involved as he really was. Like, watching the game, it was kind of like, okay, he had an ulti maybe here or there, but otherwise it was just like Tenacity's kind of just, here. I mean, he's kind of standing there, but maybe it was just a misread of the situation. EG and C9, EG 25th in the power rankings at 9 and 4, C9 16th at 10 and 3. Jojo Pune playing from home, he was sick and it looked like it. Berserker 4-2-3, 32% of damage on Lucian in the win. Eminez 5-2-4 was MVP on Tryndamere mid. FBI 4-2-3, 31% of damage on Aphelios for EG. Eminez did not actually have a lot of damage. That was a shock to me. Only 16% of Cloud9's damage came from Eminez, despite having three solo kills, 2 on Jojo Pune, and then 1 in the side lane on I don't think it was on Fudge. It might have been on FBI. But either way, like, it felt like he was super, super OP, but it was because he was getting crits and at the right time and things like that and was able to take advantage of it. Jojo Pune really, really struggled. He was like 0-5. A really, really rough showing. This game would have been a bigger blowout if it wasn't for Cloud9 getting a little too over-aggressive in the EG base, trying to end when they really couldn't and screwed up the situation. It stalled the game out for a few more minutes. They had to take another Baron to end. They had the game in hand, but it just did. Sometimes you get a little too over-aggressive, you overestimate the situation, and you pay the price for it. And it felt like for a minute there, it's like, oh, are EG really going to make this a game? Are they going to win a game again that they shouldn't? Because that's been the case this year. I feel like, and that's why I've been low on EG compared to others, is because EG, there's something to be said about a team like EG finding a way to win. Finding ways to win is important, because when you're behind, you need to find a way to win, not just, say this game is lost. But if it happens again and again and again and again, when you're against better teams, I don't expect those better teams to allow you to find a way to win like that. So, EG losing isn't a shock. I had Cloud9 winning this one. I thought that, it's a tough thing. Like, when I look at EG, Inspired is not being put on carries, and the team is struggling at times because of it. I really want them to unleash Inspired and let him actually, really take over for them. TSM and Immortals, TSM 6 and 7, Immortals 3 and 10. TSM win. Wild Turtle on a Caitlyn went 10, 3 and 6 for 41% of the team's damage. Had a very clutch Drake take that secured Soul and allowed them to actually win a team fight or maybe it was even Elder and win the game. Chime 1, 3 and 16 on Karma. Balulu pulled out his Vel'Koz, going 6-2-7 for a whopping 48% of Immortals damage. Balulu has been absolutely incredible for Immortals in the few games he's played. You can't give him Zoe. You can't give him Vel'Koz. He's already drawing Zoe bans outright in the first 3. And it's partially due to Balulu and partially to do with the rest of the team. The rest of the team isn't overly great. So when you look at Immortals, you're like, well, we're going to take this threat out of here because this is the only threat. I know it's an off-meta threat, but we respect it enough to get rid of it, and we'll face Revenge's K'Sante or Tacticals, Lucian or whatever. Like, we'll play against that, but we're not playing against the Zoe. We're not playing against the Vel'Koz anymore. And it felt like Immortals really couldn't team fight around it as well as they probably should have been able to. Maybe they weren't necessarily ready to pull it out. Obviously, Balulu only playing with the team. The main roster for a short period of time. So how many scrims have they had with the Vel'Koz in? Probably not many. But Wild Turtle probably played his best game since his return. Obviously, this is only his 3rd game since being brought up from Academy. But his Caitlyn was on point. His traps really... Actually, his trap placement was pretty good for most of the game, especially around objectives. Really putting Immortals in a situation where they had to get a little... out of the box when it came to their approaches to Drake and Baron to have any attempt at taking those objectives. He played pretty well. And TSM found a way in the end to win. Because Immortals had stacked a bunch of Drakes to start, and then TSM took a bunch of Drakes and were able to slow the game down, which was very important, and they find a way to win. CLG and Dignitas, Dig win. Dig were 1-12, CLG 7-6. Ignar was MVP on a Thresh. Tomo 459, 32% of damage on Aphelios. Armit 618 on Renekton. Luger 536, 39% of damage on Azaya for CLG. Ignar's hooks were on point in this one. Found multiple great hooks on Luger. And with that in mind, really gave the team the advantages they needed in key moments. And really set them up for success. Now, the game was an Aurelion Sol game for CLG once again. Palafox playing Aurelion Sol. And that means if you wait till 35 minutes, it's going to get ugly. And before 35 minutes, it started getting ugly for Dignitas. They had a Drake advantage. They were in position, but push comes to shove. The fight occurs where Palafox is ready. And he's able to ulti in. He's able to affect the map. And Palafox was massive for quite a few minutes until Dignitas were able to find a way to pick off Luger and pick off who they had to be able to try and like fight Palafox and whatever was left of CLG in what would be a 5v4 or a 4v3 situation or what have you. Otherwise, I mean, CLG probably had this because they allowed the game to scale to the point where it was like, okay, A-Sol is ready, so we're ready. Tomo, this was probably his worst game, in my opinion, and obviously Armit's best. Tomo started like 0-4, really struggling. Some of his positioning was off. And really, honestly, like I said, it was probably his worst game. But in the end, when it mattered, in the late game, he showed up in a big way, and I've been impressed with Tomo since his come up for Dignitas. This was definitely overdue. Probably Dignitas' best game, obviously. They only won 2, so this is, the bar is set at the floor when it comes to that. So, yeah, Dignitas win. LCK, Nongshim, and Dplus. Dplus third in the power rankings at 10-4. Nongshim 1-14. Dplus win 2-0. Kana 7-11, 26% of damage, a very even spread. Canyon 12-0-12, 2 Lee Sin games was MVP. Fiesta 0-7-2, 34% of damage for Nongshim. Excuse me. You cannot give Canyon Lee Sin when Lee Sin is meta. That's just absolutely int. Nongshim's coaching staff inted immediately. Off the rip. Game 2, Sylvie was able to keep up in the early game on Vi. The game was close for a lot longer than game 1, I think it was actually a nearly perfect game scenario, if I recall correctly. Only a couple, maybe, turrets. I don't know if Nongshim got a kill. Maybe only a couple kills, something like that. Like, otherwise, Dplus had everything. Where game 2, Sylvie was able to keep up. He went top lane and was able to kill Kana once. Showmaker pulling out Vigar and Renekton in these 2 games, which is very interesting. I am not a Renekton enjoyer, definitely not a mid-Renekton enjoyer. But the fact that he played Vigar and Renekton in the 2 games is quite a combo. The Vigar is obviously something I expected to a degree out of Showmaker. I think it's gotten buffed recently, if I remember my patch videos correctly. But the Renekton definitely was a surprise. It pairs with the Lee Sin to a degree, so it makes some sense. But Nongshim just could not keep up in any way, shape, or form. They're not doing well. When your best player, damage-wise, is dying 7 times, I want to say he was like 0-15-8 this week. I could be wrong. I feel like Fiesta is either like that all week, or it was like that the last time we played Dplus. I feel like Fiesta has had a terrible scoreline like this very recently. This upcoming week, when I do have pre-recorded content, I am going over top prospects in each role. And in mid lane, Nongshim's challenger mid laner is on that list. I understand Nongshim has a very young team right now, but Fiesta is playing like garbage. KT and Bro. KT 4th in the power rankings, 10-5. Bro 4-10. KT win 2-0. Aiming 8-1-14, 29% of damage. BDD 6-1-14 in mid. Cuz was my MVP. Morgan 2-5-4, 28% of damage for Bro. Keen was very dominant in game 1 on the K'Sante. Very, very strong. You know, I was saying Zhaoju's yesterday was very good. Keen's game 1 was outstanding. Now, despite that, he wasn't MVP because in game 2, and it's not his fault, but Bro really got after him. They dove the gangplank multiple times successfully, and even then were able to pick off Keen in some team fights where you're like, maybe Keen could have avoided that in the mid to late game. You know, game 1, Keen gets ahead. It's a very, very slow game. Game 2, very slow game. Bro just playing the style of which they want to play, but the problem is KT is just better than you, so when push comes to shove, KT are showing up in a big way. Obviously, when you look at the two carries going 14, 2, and 28 combined, you are going to have a tough time if you're Fred at Brion. Lahens playing Thresh and playing Blitzcrank. His hooks were a menace. Well, not a menace, but I mean, we're menacing. You know, just positioning by Henna was not great. Effort died a lot in this series. I want to say he died at least maybe 12 times, 13 times. Just did not look good for Bro. As Bro split are done. Obviously, reading some things that Bro are saying they've been screwed over multiple times over the last few years in the LCK, where other teams are not being screwed. Like I said when KT played Bro the first time, the only fair way to do it was to allow Bro to pick the side at the time that the teams went to the computer desk today. Even though KT would have time to prepare for both, at least Bro would get that advantage of knowing what was coming before the series to offset what happened before. Now, Bro, you know, I saw a Twitter thread of, you know, stuff about, well, Bro doesn't get camera time, Bro doesn't get to be on comms, this and that. Well, specifically about the comms thing, I don't listen to comm videos at all. But I'll say this. If I see a team that averages like 35-minute games, that doesn't have more than 10 kills more often than not and stuff like this, and this stuff I could be wrong, this is just like the stereotype I get about Bro when I watch Bro play. I just feel like Bro plays super slow and boring. What are you really talking about in comms if you aren't making anything happen? Are you just talking about things that you're thinking about having happen? Like there's nothing to talk about if nothing is happening. So, if nothing is happening, they're not going to end up on comm videos. It's just what it is. Why would you have Bro and a silent 5 minutes where, oh, we're fighting for Elder. Okay, there's a little snippet. The Bro week 4 mic check is 10 seconds. Like, it's just not, I don't think that's relevant. I think that it's just, it's a nature of being a team that does not do anything exciting. Nobody wants to, listen to silence or listen to plays that aren't going to happen. Now, as far as the award ceremony and this and that, if all the other teams are getting opportunities on camera, Bro should be getting opportunities on camera. You know, if everybody's being interviewed when they're walking in, Bro should be interviewed when walking in. If we're doing awards, and we're giving out awards to every team as like participation trophies, like, oh, we're going to make up some superlative for the bad teams. Let's do it. Then, and Bro didn't get one. That's bad. Like, if they're a bad team, just like Nongshim was bad, or just like, you know, HLE was bad last year. Let's give everybody a made-up trophy, like, if that really matters. Obviously, competitive stuff like this, Bro said this has happened to them before when it comes to side selection. I'm curious to hear if other teams come out and say this has happened. If that does happen, that eliminates Bro saying we're the only ones that have had this happen to us. Because it is weird that it only would happen to Bro. If this has happened a couple times, I imagine it's happened to other teams. They just don't come out and talk about it because maybe they won anyways and they're like, we don't care. So it's definitely, you know, something. And I figured I would go over my opinion on some of that. LPL, Ninja and Pajamas and BLG, NIP 3-8, BLG 6-5, 19th in the power rankings, win 2-0. Elk 18-3-12, 36% of damage, was MVP. Shun 6-4-25 in the jungle. Fodic 8-6-6, leading the way for NIP for 36% of the damage. If you missed my video yesterday, Shadow and Lamau were signed by these two teams respectively. Shadow played, Lamau didn't for BLG. Shadow struggled against Jalabao. Struggled against Shun for sure. I did not identify Jalabao as a problem with this team. NIP's problem is like the solo lanes are super young and raw when it comes to Invincible and Pout or Dream, and today it was Dream in mid. So when they struggle, I take that into account. Fodic is very consistently their best player. Invincible sucked into bin. Game 2, he was a lot better, but in Game 1, he was a real problem. I will say this, I do give Invincible credit for not handing over the Penta to Elk. I hate when players hand over Pentas like they're Halloween candy. That just makes Pentas all that less impressive. So for him to run away from Elk and Ghost, so Elk had to earn it or not be able to get it, was fine in the end game. Elk did have some very nice plays in this series. Dream in Game 2 was able to bring the game back with a triple kill on Tristana that I thought was might have been a quadra kill. It was very, very good. Obviously, it was good. Hell, it was a quadra kill on Tristana. But at the Drake Pit, it was very important to their comeback chances in that one. However, BLG and Elk were able to take over. Bin's Fiora, not as good as it usually is, but in Game 2, knocking down the base as there's a fight around Drake or Baron, I forget which, and BLG were able to win, which led to the Elk Quadra and all that. So, BLG win 2-0. FPX OMG win 2-1, 17th in the power rankings, 7-4. FPX 2-9. Abel 10-6, 19, 28% of damage. Aki 11-2-21 was my MVP. LWX 10, 10, and 10 for 31% of FPX's damage. Excuse me again. Shanji and Fearness going back and forth in this series, carrying games. I thought Fearness played well in FPX's win. Shanji playing well in OMG's wins. As far as why Aki was MVP in Game 3, he was able to secure a Baron that, was it Game 3? Maybe it was Game 1. I think he was on Gragas. Or was it Sejuani? So many games to think about. Mixing up champions. But he took a Baron that he probably didn't have the right to take, which allowed Cream to be the only one actually still with Baron empowerment. However, it was able to stall out that game a bit, which was important. Aki very, very important to the team when it came to his Wukong, making things happen. That was Game 3, really helping OMG get ahead. Abel on his Varus twice also did a lot of work. AP Varus dealing a ton of damage, which is why he ended up leading the team with 28%. I thought Cream left a little bit on the table. Game 2, FPX pulling out Kassadin. I've said this before. FPX's win con seems to be putting care on one of like those 1v9 champions that if you play the game perfectly, you will win more often than not, and that was the case. I'm surprised he isn't playing Aurelion Sol in a similar vein. Outside of that, OMG win. Had a little scare. Against FPX, you'd want them to do more. They play Weibo in a couple days. That's going to be an important series for them, as they need to. They need that win, right? They're in the top 25. I'm happy to see it after having OMG in my top 25 to start the year, and them having a rough little stint, and me saying, "Oh, damn, maybe they're bad again, just like last year." But they're actually showing up in a big way, and it's very nice to see. Preview for tomorrow, sneak peek, LPL, World Elite and IG, World Elite 5-7, IG 7-5, 18th in the power rankings. Both beat Ultra Prime the last time they were on the Rift. In Week 7 of Summer, IG would win 2-1. 3 of the 10 starters overlap. Those are On and Wink for IG and Bew for We. So, The Discord highlighted Gideon and Hang. Neither one were playing for those teams last year. Gideon was a KT roster substitute, and Hang was a LDL player. Top in LGD, Top Esports 8th in the power rankings at 8-3, LGD 4-8. Top lost to LNG last week, LGD lost to EDG. In week 9, Top would win 2-0, half the starters overlap. However, the highlighted matchup is Qingtian versus Xiaozhu. Qingtian was the top substitute, and Xiaozhu was in the LDL. Weibo and RNG, looking at this is one of the 3 matchups tomorrow where we have 2 top 25 teams against each other. Weibo 7-4, 11th. RNG 5-7 and 24th. Weibo lost to EDG. RNG lost to BLG. In week 3 of summer, RNG would win 2-1. 5 of the 10 starters overlap. Karsa was playing for Victory 5 at the time. Wei would go 17 kills, 7 deaths, 15 assists for 14% of RNG's damage in that win. LCK, Sandbox and DRX. Sandbox 8-7, DRX 3-10. Sandbox were 12th in my power rankings. They come off a loss to Gen G. DRX come off a loss to T1. In week 4 of this split, Sandbox would win 2-1 against DRX. Willer went 8-3-9 for 15% of Sandbox's damage in the victory. Krakow in the loss would go 6-9-14 for 17% of damage. T1 against HLE. T1 first in the power rankings, HLE 15th. HLE 9-6, T1 14-1. T1 beat DRX, HLE beat KT last time they're on the Rift. No, sorry, HLE lost to KT. They did not win. The last time these two teams played, HLE would deliver T1's only loss of the split, 2-1. Viper and Life would go 14, 10, and 50 for 40% of HLE's damage. Gumayushi and Karya would go 8, 12, and 26 for 35% of T1's damage. So that's a very important series as T1 wants a little bit of vengeance. The only difference between a perfect split or not is that one series. LEC preview. So, LEC Spring Split begins tomorrow. Fnatic and Excel. In week 2, Fnatic would beat Excel. 7 of the 10 starters overlap. Reckless would go 4-2-6 for 35% of Fnatic's damage. Patrick would go 7-5-6 for 50% of Excel's damage. That happened multiple times last split where Patrick would have like half the team's damage or 40% of the team's damage in a loss. Both teams have swapped out supports. Rux is gone, Advian is in, and Targamas is replaced by Limit for Excel. SK and BDS in week 1, BDS would win. Crowny and Labrov would go 4-3-16, 27% damage for BDS. Exakick and DOS would go 0-5-8 for 40% of SK's damage. In week 1, SK were a totally different team than they were the rest of the split. Vitality and Mad Lions. Vitality 13th, Mad Lions 14th. In week 1, Vitality would win. The bot lane Upset is on the team now instead of Neon. Neon unemployed. Well, not unemployed. He's being paid by Vitality to not play. Upset and Kaiser versus Karzi and Hillisang. Astralis and Koi in week 3. Koi would win. Larson went 6-0-4 for 21% of Koi's damage in the win. Leader replaces Dajor for Astralis. Leader, the Norwegian, is going to make his 2023 debut. Heretics and G2 finish us off. G2 9th in the power rankings. When they played Heretics in week 2, they won in 18 minutes 45 seconds. It was the second quickest game in LEC history. I expect tomorrow's game to be a little closer than that. The matchup highlighted was in the jungle. Yike would go 9-1-4 for 27% of damage. Yankos 0-6-2 for 13%. So that's it for the roundup. Like I said, the roundups may not come out this upcoming week. We'll see how things go. You will get daily content, though, in some way, shape, or form. The power rankings will be done. I am going to watch the games. I just might not have the proper environment to record, which would be unfortunate, but I am hoping to have it. So, depending on that one way or another, join the Discord to get updates on uploads and things like that. Follow me on Twitter to do the same. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Become a supporter, and thank you for watching.